Do what? Oh. Good afternoon. I'm Ellen McCarthy, Chair of the Faculty Assembly. And I'd like to call to order the spring meeting of the Faculty Assembly, which is all of you and many others who aren't here. The entirety of the faculty is the Faculty Assembly. And first we'll start with approval of the autumn minutes, and Jenny's writing down where those minutes can be found. In fact, today's agenda can be found there, the minutes can be found there. So does anybody want to approve the fall minutes? Patty? Oh, good. Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the fall minutes. Any opposed? All, what's that? Oh. Any for? I guess everybody, she said no. Okay, good. The minutes have been approved. Now we're going to move on to old business, which old and current and future business, I think, will be the weapons policy. And Chief Johnson is here to talk about that, and Patty will help if she needs to. Need anything?
I think I'm good, thank you. I don't honestly have a whole lot of new information to share with you. All you got to do is look at the calendar to know that July 1st is rapidly approaching. But I guess more importantly, the session of the legislature is also rapidly coming to its end as well. There is still a possibility that an exemption could be written into the law for this campus and the healthcare system. There is a bill in the Senate that has been debated in committee and it's kind of stalled there as it did in the House. But again, I'm told by the people who spend more time in Topeka than I like to spend in Topeka that there is still a possibility that that law might actually be debated on the floor and might yet still have some future. Frankly, I think we're going to know the disposition of that bill within the next couple of weeks. I think there's, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a veto session 1st of May. What's going on behind the scenes, I don't know, so I couldn't tell you that. The way it stands now is many of you have heard me speak to this subject matter for some time. July 1st is the date that the exemption that was written into law 4 years ago expires. What that means is that in most cases, without metal detectors, that concealed firearms would be legally permissible on the campus. The other thing of note is the regents have indicated that they have a desire to review policies that they've already approved related to weapons. We'll see what the outcome of that is, but I think that occurs next week. So again, the point of that is that there are still things that are work in progress that I'm still not yet able to say, here's the procedure, here's the law, all these things are less than ordained, and this is the world we're going to live in. So there are still things that frankly are, even at this late hour, still yet to be determined. So with that in mind, Dr. Samar, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I actually have we're asking the Senate
Senate Bill 235.
Senate Bill 235.
So, yeah,
Well, we need it on the floor, right?
it has not reached the floor.
How does it, so who,
Yeah, there's political maneuvering that can be done to.
but who would want, if they were inclined just that.
Yeah, well, I think that the people that have the inclination and the power to do that are well briefed on what's involved in doing that.
There are faculty.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think that I would take the broad approach as many have done on this subject matter and go for the whole legislature would be my recommendation.
Right. So let's just say it doesn't, what should the faculty expect? We have, I mean, what should, what would business July?
We are looking at a proposal of limiting the public entrances, which is just a good security measure, irrespective of the weapons. So I think it's likely that some of the doors that you may come in during the daytime and not have to use a card reader will require you to do that during the daytime. And the idea behind that would be that we would try to channel non-affiliated individuals to one or two entrances, which would make it much easier in the event we did need to do. Again, keep in mind that adequate security measures, metal detectors can be done temporarily. So if we needed to do them quickly on short notice, that would make it much easier for us to do that. I mean, literally some of the things that would occur, you would see one less sign on each door. The sign that has, I confused the two of them, but one of them still prohibits open carry. We will retain our ability under the law to prohibit that. The concealed carry sign would go away. Well, both of the signs are prescribed by the law and the Attorney General's interpretation of that. So we can't get creative in our signs because the law is very specific that it has to be, obviously for very important reasons, it has to be consistent with the common messaging. Again, I think that, again, back to your question, as we go forward closer to July 1st and after that, my staff is available to meet with individuals or groups to field questions, much as what Dr. Samari is asking. Again, the operational piece to that is still going to be that if you see someone on campus that you feel is in possession of a firearm, you should call us. We'll respond and we'll investigate, make sure the situation is safe. But with the understanding that there could be a circumstance that the person could very well be legally carrying their firearm on campus. But again, obviously the nature of that is that we're here to investigate that and we'll work with you and be able to sort through that. The gun locker things, again, I don't know. Are we talking huge numbers of people that are going to, students, employees, people who would be legally carried, who otherwise would check their gun at the door? I just have no way of knowing how many people we're talking about. So we are looking at placing a number of lockers at key entry points to the facility with that in mind.
And then will the person have to get a key from security?
Yeah, the way those are set up is much like what you see at I thought I'd been to a bus station recently, but traditionally you walk up to a locker, there's a key in it. Take the key, exactly. So, yes.
The last time we had an update, you said donations to increase. And doors.
I'm not going to give you the detailed answer that you need for that question. Actually, the law does not
We weren't able to hear the question on this campus.
I'll see if I can repeat that for you. The question is that there was previous discussion about the ability under the law for a provider to refuse to basically see or treat an individual who is in possession of a firearm. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. The law doesn't actually address that at all. The basis of the information came from an attorney general's opinion when the AG was asked specifically that question. So it is something to hang your hat on, realizing that that attorney general's opinion is only as good until there is a court that has otherwise interpreted the law differently, or the legislature has amended the law to either clarify that or address that as well. I think that much of the answers to that, again, are going to have to be provided by people who have attorneys, who are attorneys, because really that ultimately comes down to that. Is, you know, it's a balancing, obviously, position. This gentleman might have some insight to that.
So John, we're working through that right now with the health system, and I think whatever we ultimately decide with the health system is what we're going to want to do broadly, so we're consistent. And as the chief said, that's based on an AG opinion, which can be challenged. And so I think it also would be valuable for us all to be consistent, so if we get challenged, we're all together in that challenge, in addressing that challenge. And so there is a lot of work going on right now to look at how we do that. Do we do it at the provider level, at the clinic level? Do we do it on the door of the entire clinic? We think probably not the latter, but we're trying to figure that out right now. But whatever the health system comes up with, I would argue that that's what we should probably do at all our locations. Hang on one second, we'll grab you a microphone.
The question I would like to ask is if we have a student that's coming, let's say, for a test or for any reason that might be upset, and we would like to go to a safe area just in case they are carrying, is there an area for faculty to go to with their students?
Again, that's going to relate back to the location having adequate security measures, whether that would be a room within a building or a building itself. We have not designated a specific full-time building or room for that purpose or for any related purpose to that. However, if there is a situation where you anticipate having a difficult conversation, then my staff is available to assist you in being able to support you in that as well. One other comment, if I could, to Dr. Farrell's question. It is going to be important that our procedure, the medical center's procedure, does touch upon what we just talked about as far as being able to ask the person not to bring their weapon in. But it is going to be important as the health system develops their policies that they have some pretty clear guidelines in that, because at the end of the day, they're going to be calling my staff. And for me to have a legal basis for asking the person to leave, then there needs to be a pretty clear and uniformly written procedure with that. So again, that's why we have attorneys, and that's what they get paid to do. So that's what I'm looking forward and working with them to be able to articulate that. Did I answer your question at all, or we do not have a place specifically for that? But again, it can be done. The law does permit a temporary, and if we had reason to do it in this room, we could do it.
Do ones at the door. Use the mic.
I was surprised when I had this discussion with the medical school assembly folks. They said, we don't have any idea why you need to meet with us face-to-face anyway. We would prefer to do that discussion by FaceTime or Skype or other things. I was shocked by that response, but they said we would prefer not to be in your presence. We'd prefer to be in a safe place ourselves. So if we're upset, we think you can FaceTime us. Now, I'm just passing on a message that is generational difference, because I don't know if that's any worse than, well, let's get wanded before we talk. I don't know if the student would feel any better or worse. I'm just presenting an intergenerational view that was expressed to me. Oh, they do. In person, as in person, not interesting. Well,
any other questions for me related to this subject? Okay, as soon as all the pieces come together, we obviously will share that. But thank you for your time, and as always, you can send me an email or reach out if you have any other related issues you'd like for me to touch upon. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think next on the agenda was actually Robert McCormick giving a legislative update, and Robert couldn't be here today, so I will attempt to do that. And there is actually some handouts. I don't know if they're at the other campuses as well. Did they get those electronically? They're online. Okay, at the same site. So I can do that for Robert. As the chief indicated, last Friday, the legislature went to what they call first adjournment, which means they're off until May 1st when they come back for the veto session. The veto session is supposed to be to deal with everything that they've passed and the governor has subsequently vetoed, and then they come back and deal with it. What's really happened in the last couple of years is the veto session has just become an extension of the session, and that's certainly where we are today. And they have a bunch of work to do. The one thing they did get done before they left is they agreed upon, both House and Senate, and subsequently signed by the governor, a rescission bill, which is a bill to deal with a $290 million shortfall current year. And that was clearly the first thing they needed to deal with. They did that, and they did that by borrowing the money against an idle investment fund that sits in the state, and they're going to pay that back over 7 years. And so they did obviously with another one-time fix for this $290 million budget shortfall. You can argue the wisdom of that choice, but certainly from our perspective, that means we're not going to get a cut retroactive to July 1st, as we have every year for the last 5 years. And so that is definitely a good thing for us. So we will not see a rescission current year. They also this year have to do a 2-year budget. We do budgets now in 2-year cycles, so it's, even though we argue about them every year, they actually create a 2-year budget, so it's time to create a new 2-year budget. And the Senate has actually created a budget that has gone to the floor and passed. The House has one that has not gone to the floor yet. Both have similar language in them around higher education funding, and that is to essentially keep it flat. So if you remember, flat is actually down. So those 5 years that we took rescissions, our budget's actually automatically reset to the year before. So we've really been flat for 5 years. Until this last year, we took on this campus a 3.2% reduction. And that was actually a cut, not just a one-time rescission. That was a reduction of our baseline budget for the first time really through all of this. And so the proposed budget language would be we will stay at that 3.2% reduction level for next year, and then the subsequent year they will bring it to 3%. So not a big issue for this campus at that point in time. But essentially it's going to be flat for 2 years is what we're looking at. That's the language on both sides right now. That is part of a very big spending bill that's still has to get out of the House, and then it has to go to conference committee. That piece of it is not conferenceable because they both have exactly the same language in it, but the governor then ultimately needs to sign it. So pretty good indication that we're going to be held flat for the next 2 years as well. Of course, flat is a reduction when you factor inflation, rising costs, and everything else, but at least it's not rising cost in addition to a cut. So I think we all have taken a sigh of relief given that we're looking at a $900 million deficit in the next 2 years. And so to come out of that with essentially a flat budget is probably best described as a win. So that's probably where it's going to end up. It still could change when they all come back. What they most definitely did not agree upon is how to pay for any of that. And so the tax effort the tax reform effort had great momentum very early in the session. Actually, out of both the House and the Senate, a plan came forward. It was agreed upon by both. It was sent to the governor, and he vetoed it. That plan actually created a couple new tax brackets, it closed the LLC loophole, and it generated enough money to do everything that we just talked about. And he vetoed that, and they could not override that veto. They didn't have enough votes. And so they went back to the table. The Senate floated a flat tax plan, which many would regard as very, very regressive. That plan actually still did not raise quite enough money to do everything we just talked about, and that only got 3 votes on the Senate. So that didn't go anywhere. So when they come back, they really have no place to start on a tax plan. So that's one of their big bodies of work that they will need to do. You probably heard that Medicaid expansion had, for the first time, actually got debated on the floor of both houses in the last 4 or 5 years. It did get debated, and it passed both the House and the Senate, and then it got vetoed. And they were 3 votes shy on the Senate side, and I think 2 votes shy on the House side of overriding that veto. So it's probably done for this year. And then the last one that they have not tackled is the K through 12 funding formula, which is a big one. So they've got a lot of work to do for a veto session. They're supposed to be done, I think, mid to late May, theoretically. They're not going to be done until who knows when. So we got a ways to go on that. Just a couple other, any questions about the legislative stuff? Question was, does it seem like the governor is going to be around a long time? And I understand there's a pool running in Topeka on that question, if you'd like to put some money on the answer to it. Nobody knows. Nobody really knows at this point. There's a lot of speculation, no information. So, fair question. Great. A couple other just quick updates. Parking garage is coming along quickly, should open June 1st. There is a parking survey for this campus that was sent out to everybody. Please fill it out. We're trying to realign and get people parking closer to where they actually want to park, but we can't do that without the data. That's also a registration process and gets you registered in the new registration process. So it's very important for everybody to fill that out, and we're working hard to get that restructured. The goal actually is to have everybody assigned to a place to park where there will always be at least 5% of the parking spots open. So that if you're assigned to a place, you should always be able to park in that place. You shouldn't have to start at point A, and if it's not there, go to B, and if it's not there, go to C. So that's really the overall target of doing that. At least for the next few years, we should have the capacity to do that. And then the health education building, similarly, is coming along very quickly, right on target. We currently are planning a grand opening event on July 20th, and so we're a lot of more information to come about that, but should be ready, up and running, and actually hopefully ready to occupy, I think, a week later, Rob, when the med students show up. So it should be pretty much ready to go by July 20th. So look forward for some information about that event. And I'm happy to take any questions on any other issues if anybody has any. Patty, including.
Just wondered if you could give an update on the timeline for this new strategic plan and where that's at and when it's going to be.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, so the new strategic plan for the medical center, which we really started last fall, has gone through a series of steps. If you recall, we started with creating some general themes, and into those themes some concepts, and out of those concepts starting to work into the unit areas. We're really at the school level right now with those. Hope to have those done by July, and hopefully we'll be ready for really some dissemination and action items to come out of that by midsummer. So hopefully everything will be ready by fall. And thank you everybody who's been engaged in that process, and a whole lot of people have been engaged in doing that work, and it's been really good work. Thank you for that. Other questions? I'll move on. Back to you, Dr. McCarthy. Yep, that was a double. That was a twofer right there.
Let's see, where is young Dr. Klein? On his way, all right. Oh, and the standing committee reports are below. Can you make it up the agenda? Or, I can do that, okay. Shoot. Anybody have questions or comments for? Now, is the elections committee person?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, look, particularly under the elections report, they're still looking for people to run for the positions, or I guess if you're the only one, you're not really running. Okay. So now we're waiting for Dr.
Look at that. Perfect timing.
Oh, there he is. Speak of the angels. No, to keep walking. Keep walking. Yeah.
Thanks, Ellen.
Okay, no.
Oh,
No one fear him.
yeah, I'm Robert Klein, Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Let's see. So a couple of things. The 2-year trip through the Board of Regents for track changes has been accomplished, and we survived it. Dr. Gerard and I think, did the last 3 performances. There are some key pieces, particularly for the schools that, I think we had this discussion, Norb was at the meeting earlier, for schools that are using Clinical Scholar Track, it allows Clinical Scholar Track faculty to be part-time, which save a lot of paperwork and really just oddities of the system of asking people to change track when they didn't want to have to actually request the change. Other pieces, the research track has never been part of the Regents policy manual, even though it's existed for about 50 years. The idea of dual employment, initially in terms of physician employment, originally by one of the individual foundations, now for the integrated health system, plus being employed by the university, is news to the Board of Regents, and it's now in the policy manual, but it's in a very general way, which covers School of Nursing and School of Health Professions for faculty that are going to participate in the practice plan for health professions or nursing. So that's another critical piece. We'll get, yeah, okay, you're right on top of things, Ellen. So a couple of other pieces. It allows VA, and let's do VA first, for VA faculty to be 5/8 VA, 3/8 University of Kansas, which permits people to apply for VA merit awards, which are, I'd say, a drop less competitive than NIH currently, and depends on what President Trump does with that budget, but seems to be focused on the NIH budget right now, and overhead, because overhead has nothing to do with research. My political statement for today. Let's see, what other pieces are there in there? There are 2 executives at in the integrated health system that will now be permitted to be tenure track or clinical scholar track. So they are basically triple employed, and that's has not been allowable in the past. Did I get everything, Doug? Oh, yes, I forgot CMH. So along with the VA, Children's Mercy faculty will be allowed to be clinical scholar track faculty members rather than volunteer. And the individual School of Medicine is the one that uses Clinical Scholar almost entirely. The other 2 schools are not using it. They need to come up with a decision as to what percentage. I've talked to Dr. Durham, kind of aiming at 3 days or 60% as a cutoff. Really not anxious. In fact, I would really be opposed to somebody 1 day a week being on clinical scholar track. I think it's not what it's intended for. That would be perfectly suitable for clinical track. So those are the track changes that have taken forever to get through the board, and I think they're really important to the medical center. Faculty awards, all this stuff is up on the web, but we already have closed, and these terms are kind of confusing. The Chancellor's Club Teaching Awards, that I think we have a number of really good applicants, and we'll be meeting in May, and have an announcement in June because the cash comes in the fall. So we have representation in the applicant pool from all three schools, which is great. So, and we have one opening, and I think we will have several more in the next few years. So there will be other opportunities. The other award that is confused with the Chancellor's Club Teaching Award is the Chancellor's Distinguished Teaching Award. It doesn't continue from year to year. It's a one-time $1,000 award, and it is open currently for submissions. And I urge people in the schools to find individuals who've done outstanding teaching. We get nominations. Jenny just mentioned it to me. A student wanted to nominate someone who has already had the award. It's kind of one time, one shot. So, and those individuals are acknowledged in a couple of places now. They are acknowledged at the Teaching Summit in Lawrence, but we've also added what do we call it? Academic Day, yes, across the schools, and so it's a further recognition for those individuals. Let's see. We are getting a lot of policies coming down through the system. And so we have a revised individual conflict of interest policy that will be up on the web for a period of time. I urge you to comment and ask other faculty members to comment. I took a very quick read on it, and it's the first reasonable conflict of interest policy I've seen put together. It excludes your retirement plans and other things that people were thinking they needed to list as conflicts. It has to be dollars that you have control of within a company or stock within a company that you have some control of. So admittedly, it was an Evelyn Woods quick read, but I thought it was on target. So it's open for comment, and it'll be up for 6 weeks or so. Yeah. So I think that's all I have. I'll answer any questions. It was revised because there's been several different policies between Lawrence and here. When physicians go out and give talks and things, and those tend to get listed oftentimes in the Kansas City Star. I think there's been at least one article indicating some presentations from pharmaceutical firms in dollars that flow because all those get reported. And so we have had a zero tolerance, basically. Everything had to be reported. Lawrence had, I can't remember what their cutoff was, but we had a number of different cutoffs. And so this brings a policy that is reasonable for the medical center. It's Passover. It can't be agnostic.
Does it suggest which roles faculty follow when they're in the hospital? Do they follow the hospital policies or the university policies?
That's a really good question because I don't know the hospital policy.
They're laxer.
They're laxer. Yeah.
So are they? So we need to let faculty know, because if they're over there getting a free lunch, it will be reported on the Sunshine Law.
Right.
And they will be in violation of university policy.
Yeah. All right.
As it currently stands.
Okay. So
I'm not sure it's the hospital's role to police this for the faculty. I think it's the faculty's role, and
yeah.
So we have to.
Why don't I send the link to maybe to Lee Norman as a starting point, Chief Medical Officer, and let him take a look at it.
Okay.
That's a good point. Okay.
Also faculty?
You know, a similar situation exists in Wichita, and I don't know if the hospitals have different policies than the university, but they could be caught in the same web. If we probably need to get some clarity around that.
Yeah, the same thing actually has happened the last 2 days over an observership. There seem to be some different rules for the OR and the hospital compared to Office of International Programs. And we'll talk about that about 4:30.
Good.
Hold on, Norm.
Yeah, the two awards, even though they sound the same, Chancellor's, you were asking, are there specifics for the two awards? There are, and they're up on the web. The Chancellor's Club Distinguished Teaching Award, if I remember correctly, is a minimum of 10 years, and so it's for a more senior person. Lawrence has again changed their rules that it used to be you need to be close to retirement. I think they review theirs every 5 years, and Doug and I have had some conversations about review of some of the professorships that continue, what kind of review process we should have. But Lawrence reviews their Chancellor's Club teaching awards, or teaching, I can't remember, they have another name for it, every 5 years, and then renews them basically, because they found that some of the people they thought were close to retirement, we don't have an age retirement requirement, so I think they found that they had to review on a regular basis. So that one's longer. The Chancellor's Distinguished Teaching Award has tended to be for more junior folks, but then I think I do have a list of like last year's award winners. I do. Sandra Billinger, Elaine Domian, Erica Howe, and Gary Doolittle. So the committee had some discussion over whether it should stay for more junior people, but yet you have somebody, in this case like Gary Doolittle, who's taught for a very long time, has never been recognized with the award. So, and the rules have never said it's for a more junior person, but that has been kind of the tendency. Okay.
I think we're at the end of our agenda, if not the end of our ropes. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss? And I have 45 minutes of closing comments, and I can do it. And I do want to say, since I will never be given a microphone again, that it has been a pleasure being the chair of the faculty assembly. And also regarding the gun issue, it's all going to be okay. I promise you. I just promise you it will be. We will not be tested beyond the limits of our courage. This will, and if it doesn't get changed, and if, from what I understand, Kansas has the most lenient or most awful, depending on your point of view, law, so be it. Then we will show them how it's done. Because I'll tell you what will not happen. We will not come to fear or mistrust our students or our patients or their families, because we will not be able to serve them as we should if we fear them. So we will not let that happen, and it won't. And it's going to be okay. Promise you. So, that's all. I could go on in that vein for 45 minutes. I have lots of prepared remarks. So does anybody have any comments? All right, we are adjourned.